Dennis Weiss, good morning. I work for Eagle Communications. Welcome to our town. We're in one of our historic buildings, downtown Abilene. You can't tell by the background, but you're going to learn what that sign means. Trey Green, good morning.
Good morning, how are you doing?
Cowork Abilene. So does that mean I get to help you work and you get to help me work?
Absolutely, we're all here to help each other out.
Okay, so tell me why we're in the building we're in and what you're doing here.
Great. Well, Cowork Abilene started as a result of Jennifer Green, my wife, moving back into town. And one of the things that she found living down on 1300 Road was that internet accessibility for remote workers just wasn't one of the strong points of Abilene, Kansas. So she actually worked out of SIPS for about 3 or 4 weeks as we were finding her a spot. And that kind of created the genesis of a thought in our mind of opening up a shared business solution here in town, and in particular in downtown. And here 7 years later, we're actually getting this thing off and running.
Yeah, that's so exciting. We're going to work our way back and explain to people who've never heard about co-working what it is. But the first thing you said that I want to jump on is the essence of business is that I have a problem. My buggy has 4 wheels on it. One of them's bad. And I need to fix my buggy wheel. So I went to fix my buggy wheel, and oh my goodness, I'm pretty good at it. And then it dawns on me that everybody around me has buggies, and they probably have wheels that have problems from time to time, and I have a little extra time, a little extra space.
Right.
Maybe I'll start fixing other people's buggy wheels. The idea of business is that we share human problems, and we share, by definition, we share human solutions. Now, co-working, explain it.
Co-working is an environment in which somebody takes the risk and builds the infrastructure, the backbone necessary for individuals to come in together and be productive within their community and within the business space. One of the beautiful things about it is it brings like-minded individuals into a space, people that have the same needs. We all need a place to work. We all need the basic infrastructure to support us. Coming into an environment like Cowork Abilene allows you to come in, sit down at a desk, or join a community and get running right off the ground. In addition to that, one of the biggest assets are those people. In our space, we have commodities traders, we have employment specialists, we have graphic designers, we have software developers, we have business analysts. All of these people are in an environment working together, and we all provide resources to each other. There's a synergy that comes about when you put big groups or small groups of creative people together, and you just can't pay for that.
You know, and you've tapped into something that is also going on around you. So this is Cowork Abilene. You're describing the tool that you're putting in the marketplace where people have a place to come who is equipped, that's already equipped to do business, that they walk in and they use with a rental agreement or a shared cost agreement or however you're going to explain this to us. But it immediately gives them an office to operate out of, and because of the way our modern world works, connectivity to the world to do what they want to do. But the second thing you just told me is the people around, the other people, like-minded people, are an asset to your customer as well.
Right. A lot of our remote workers and a good portion of our clientele are service agreement holders, are remote workers, or they're small entrepreneurs that just are making the first step out of the kitchen. Or out of the den or the garage or wherever that business is. And what this space gives them is exactly that built out infrastructure that they need, the community that they need, and a professional environment in which to work.
You know, I said you're in a historic building downtown. I don't think I told them which building. We're at 300 North Cedar, right?
Yes, we are.
The name of the building?
Absolutely. The United Trust building.
If there is a more historically named building than this one in Abilene, I don't know what it is. You know, we're pretty fortunate. We have a lot of historic buildings, but this one, the United Building, was that's C.L. Brown. That is one of the center industrialists of America who started here in Abilene. how cool is it to put a co-work space in
Absolutely.
CL Brown space?
Absolutely, and we're actually bringing some of that telecom business back into this space. One of the major things we do out of this space is MVNO and NB&E integration with the Sprint network,
Wow.
which the Genesis is right here in Abilene.
Okay, that's very cool. All right, so we're going to circle around 2 or 3 times and re-explain what co-working is. So let me ask you serious questions. So if somebody's been working out of their kitchen,
Okay.
selling quilt design,
Okay.
and they have their computer connected sewing machine in the back that they download patterns of. And you know how I know this? Because we sold a wireless connection way back when in Longford to a little lady who wanted it to download her quilting patterns into her fancy sewing machine. So let's say that she's doing that, but her business is outgrowing her comfort level in her dining room.
Mm-hmm.
And she feels like maybe she needs to work with some other professionals who maybe know a little bit more about marketing in the social media space.
Right.
This is an opportunity for her.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things we drive here at Cowork Abilene, or any of the co-working spaces nationwide, is that sense of community. We all provide resources to each other. It's interesting when you come into these spaces because once somebody becomes comfortable working in the environment, they almost never go back. And there's the not so subtle cues. If somebody's got their headphones on, they're obviously head down and working. Right. But a lot of times you can see somebody kind of struggling with a problem. And a lot of times just over the coffee machine. Simple question, hey, how's it going today? What's going on? And 9 times out of 10, as they describe the challenge that they're having, they find the solution and they move on. Mm-hmm. But quite often it's a member of the community that is actually able to provide them the help or to point them to somebody that can. And that is one of the greatest assets of any co-working environment.
Your co-working Abilene falls dead in the middle of Abilene Forward, right? We're in downtown Abilene.
Absolutely.
I call that a group, Abilene Forward, the coalition of the willing. Mm-hmm. The people are coming together to do what can be done with their efforts and their own leadership and their own sweat equity and their own capital to make things better in downtown Abilene.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, you're physically in the middle of it. You're right in the center of the historic district, so you're very located there. But your idea itself about bringing people together to help each other grow is really heart and soul of Abilene Forward. That's what this is about.
Right. And like with Abilene Forward, it is very intentional. We're downtown for very specific reasons. Any of our clients, any of the people that work in our space have access to so many resources here locally, whether it's the economic development, the chamber, CVB, Abilene Forward. Just down the street the other day, I needed to have something printed off. I went ahead and hit Abilene Printing.
Right.
I took a 2-minute walk. I stopped in and said hi to John over at 3rd Street Deli.
Right.
I saw a potential client, driving school out of Manhattan, Kansas, that was in here in town, he was driving down 3rd Street as I was walking back. I made a soft contact on my way to and from my space. Yeah. We just have so much here. I come from Southern California. If I have a commute, my commute is 30, 40, 50 minutes, and I spend that time in my car.
Yeah.
If I'm lucky, I'm able to leverage that time a little bit remotely on the cell phone, making sales calls or whatever. Here in town, if I hit both lights on the way from my house to the office, my commute is 5 minutes, and I see 20, 30 people I know. In my day here in town, every time I step out of this building, I see 2 or 3 people that I know within the first block. Every step, every motion I make down here in town puts me in contact with people that in some way can add benefit to what I'm doing, or I can reciprocate.
I'm going to tell you a story, then we're going to talk about that a little bit. So I moved to Kansas in 1992. My first job, I was a sales agent firm, salesman for an agent firm who was helping IBM sell mid-range hardware. We were replacing the blue suiters. Well, I sat with John Devine and Jack Rolfe. John Devine was the salesperson for IBM. Jack Rolfe was sales engineer. So, and this is maybe year 2 or 3, and I'm sitting here, and Jack, brilliant man, works over at City Salina IS department now. But anyway, brilliant guy. He's sitting there one day, just really had that look on his face, and I go, Jack, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He goes, well, I'm figuring out. We're looking at buying a house in a different neighborhood of Salina, and he says, I'm working on what it'll change my commute time. And I looked at him, I said, explain. He says, well, you know where I live now. And I go, yeah. He said, it takes me 3.5 minutes to get to work. And he says, if we move over XYZ, and he said, I drove it the other day, and he goes, it's going to be about 7 minutes to work.
Absolutely.
First of all, that's Jack. I mean, that brilliance and that efficiency paid dividends in other ways.
Absolutely.
But I looked at him and said, Jack, I lived 1.5 miles from the college I attended in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
My commute could be 35 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
It just depends on what happened to the guy in front of me.
Absolutely.
I said, you could live anywhere in Salina and not change your life at all. What are you doing? But it became a point of reference for me. So it was important to him, well, not so much to me because of my life experiences, right? But here's the bore down on what you said, Trey, about what you saw walking 3rd Street. The great economic development questions always asked is in towns this size is, okay, how do we win? How do we move forward? Yeah. Well, everybody's asking the same question. There's some real crazy answers going on out there. One of which is, you know, I'm a broadband guy. You'd think I'd really like this idea, but I don't. It's that if we just had a gig internet to every house in town, the world would be better. No, it would not. Nor would it be better if you had an 8-foot water main.
Right.
You're only going to drink and flush so much, right? Same on the internet. But here's what is better. You put 5 people upstairs, 10 people downstairs, and they all take the same walk. Lunches, breakfasts, printing, associations of people start coming together. And that is the magic potion for small town economic development.
And once you kick that ball off, and once you get it rolling, there's a certain amount of energy that needs to be expended to get that energy started, to get that momentum started. But once you get that ball rolling, it starts to feed itself. And you know, we just, I just rolled off Abilene High School, and it was one of the greatest experiences I have ever had. I tell my wife, Jenny, it's the only job that I loved more the day I quit than when I took it. But one of the things that's interesting is when we graduate kids out of the high school, the first question we're inclined to ask them is, where are you going?
Right.
And the interesting thing is in small town Kansas, we have so much that's added benefit to our lives that counterbalances the food and whatever arts you might have in the larger cities. The shortness of the commute, everything. When you talk about the internet in the house, if they have the assets in the house, one of the things that Jenny and I have found, and one of the genesis for Cowork Abilene for me in particular, was the fact that I don't want to work out of the house. If I sit in the bedroom office upstairs, I have a great view, but if I'm in there for 10 hours a day, I get tired of being at the house, and I want to be out around people. And I think we're going to see that with a lot of the individuals in rural Kansas or in rural America. And as they gravitate back home, econ development is looking for the next Thunderstruck. They're looking for the next Abilene machine, and I think that's great. But our primary outreach is going to be the class reunions. We'll market ourselves. We'll go out looking for people. But if I can drag, or if I can encourage somebody to come back,
too.
Yes, it is. But if you're making $80,000, $90,000 on the West Coast, you are existing.
Right.
You are paying the rent, you're living to work.
Giant sucking sound as it goes back out.
Absolutely. If we can bring that business into Abilene, a remote worker, somebody that's consulting, that if we can show them that we have the infrastructure and the
Right.
space, all of a sudden we're pulling six-figure jobs into Abilene. And how could you live in Abilene on $80,000, $90,000
Really well.
a year? Really well.
So-
And that is the biggest resource that we're hoping to offer,
So
is to provide that space.
You and I may be partners on the preaching circuit if we continue this sort of thing, because I may keep asking you to do things like this, because I believe your message you're giving today is the message.
Right.
It's the working together message. You well know my wife runs a community foundation in Dickinson County, and she was going through some paperwork one night on grant cycles and things, and they grant money to other nonprofits that go through a process of application. And we were just chatting, and I said, you know, if I were to have a magic wand on any application that came in,
Right.
I would make it mandatory that they have to show they're cooperating actively with at least one other nonprofit to be considered.
Absolutely.
Well, sometimes, you know, people work on their own speed on cooperation, but leadership, sometimes you have to say it's necessary.
Absolutely.
So even if you don't know how. So I was at the Abilene Forward meeting, I think it was the second one. People were talking about their challenges, and boy, how do we get more people in our store? Another lady who with a store here in Abilene stood up and said, there are things you can do, and I'm doing them now. On Facebook Live was what she was talking about, and talking about the active marketing of her store through social media, and as in all things, doing it well. I mean, there's doing it and doing it well.
Absolutely.
So doing it well works, but just because we're in the midst of cultural revolution and change, so was C.L. Brown, I might say. So was
Absolutely.
Dwight David Eisenhower. So was Joseph McCoy all the way back. It was cultural change is always around us. It's
Absolutely.
seeing the opportunity and taking advantage of it. I think you're sitting on a good one.
Well, we really hope so, and we really think, like I said, and you've brought up repeatedly, I think that we're in the right spot. Being downtown, you talk about not being the expert on everything. If you look at our Facebook side, my wife and I are both wireheads, and you would think we'd have it down. But on the walk the other day, I passed 3 photography shops.
Yeah.
And it sunk in that some of the weakest portions of our marketing is our graphic representation of our space.
Right.
And on one of those short walks through downtown, I reached out to 2 local businesses and said, hey, come in, give me some consulting. Tell me what it is that I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing the amount of knowledge and the amount of resources that we have in Abilene, Kansas. You don't think they're there, but you start shaking that tree just a little bit, and it's amazing the amount of good information and the good people that you run into.
So I know we're probably, if they just tuned in, they think we're talking about collective work in Abilene. So, but isn't it important to say that asking for help is the first step to getting it?
Absolutely.
So, but co-working space, which is what you're doing here in this space and what you're promoting on this show today, is the act of giving people an opportunity
Absolutely.
to pull the headphones off instead of talking to the cat at home going, have you got any ideas how I could do X, Y, Z better?
Absolutely.
And they have other professionals around them that probably have some ideas or have some contacts.
Right. And actually, one of the most interesting things about this space is the mix of for-profits and not-for-profits in the building. Right. I just attended an event that was actually hosted outside our space by QLC, their community forum the other morning. And they were having a roundtable discussion of the problems. And there were 2 of us, City of Abilene, and then myself as a for-profit entity. The rest of the table was not-for-profits. And one of the problems that they came up with was neighbor to neighbor was having trouble finding drivers for remote locations, Hillsborough to Junction City. Just sitting there at the table, I looked over at City of Abilene and mentioned a business name.
Okay.
And said, wouldn't it be great if they were able to reach out? And this entity is involved in marketing.
Right.
They're involved in telecommunications and cable. That entity could promote that in those remote locations for you.
So we got a minute and a half left. Gosh, can we do it again?
Absolutely.
Okay,
My time is your
all right.
time.
That gives us an opportunity to say to be continued, right?
Absolutely.
This is such a great thing. I want to tell people as we sign off, Trey Green, Co-working Abilene. This is room upstairs in United Building that we roll this thing into to talk about his business. You put the t-shirt on this morning. I clipped the microphone on, Dave clipped the microphone on you, and we're telling people about an opportunity in
Absolutely.
downtown Abilene. But that is a representation of what you can do.
Absolutely.
You can put your t-shirt on, you can roll your business name in the back of one of your spaces, you can clip your headphones, phone, cell phone, and about to hook up to Eagle Internet via fiber. We'll get that deal done because resources
Absolutely.
are available in Abilene, Kansas to do anything you want to do. You
Absolutely.
just have to ask.
Absolutely. You couldn't say it better.
All right. Okay. Trey Green, Co-work Abilene. I'm Dennis Weiss, I work for Eagle Communications. So excited to have you with us today. Have a great day.